All right, let's go over the basic tools. Now, these are the essential tools we're going to use throughout the whole class. Some of the stuff you already know, and some of it hopefully will help you out. You maybe don't know yet. So even if you've got a little more experience, go ahead and stick through this little basic part here. First tool we're going to start off with is the clone stamp tool. All right, so the clone stamp tool is interesting. What the clone stamp tool does is it's usually used to cover something, right? We're not removing stuff. We're cloning something over something. So for example, just to give you an idea, you see we've got this doorway here. If I wanted the doorway to go away, I would clone this wall over that. I would option click with the clone stamp tool. So the clone stamp tool is right over here. Clone stamp, press the letter S to get it. Option click on Mac, Alt click on Windows. Where that spot is, you're telling Photoshop, copy this area over here. Watch when I start painting over here. Look, it clones it right over. Do you see the little plus sign to your left? That's where it's cloning from, and the circle is where it's cloning to. All right, so we can kind of clone this area here, and you can see when my cursor hit that little black spot there, what is that thing? Rear view mirror, thank you. That rear view mirror, it copied that too. So if you make a mistake, just hit Command Z on Mac or Control Z on Windows to start over. In fact, I'll just make my brush a little smaller and start painting over here. So you can see it's picking up this piece of wall and painting it over there. So that's what it's doing. It's literally cloning. All right. Now, one of the things about cloning is, do you notice that the color here is a little different than the color right below it? One of the things that you want to do when you're cloning is to make sure that you sample an area. That's the option click on Mac or Alt click on Windows. You want to sample an area very, very nearby, because the light changes from way over here. It's darker and then it gets lighter on this side. Well, if I sampled way over here like I did and I start painting, it doesn't match the wall right there. It doesn't match. This is darker. I would need to sample very, very close to the same color. So I would sample here and then start painting here. And now the color's right on the money, but I can only paint until I reach the edge of where that wall used to be, and then you can see it starts painting a hard edge. So I need to sample again and then paint a little more, sample again, and then I can kind of go. And you're thinking, well, doesn't that take longer? Yes, it does. But the colors match, and having everything match is really important. Now, where else might this work out? Well, if I wanted to fully cover this door, right, I'll have to cover it and keep painting. It'll take me a couple of minutes. Also, at the bottom, you're going to want to pick up this bottom here. If you option click right here, you can come over here and you see, this is one of the greatest things about the tool. You actually see a preview. See what's inside of there? That's a preview of where I option clicked. So look down here. I option clicked right along this line right here, right along that crack. So then I can move over here and pick up painting right in that same spot. And look, it paints what's on the bottom right there. Now, if I keep painting, look at the plus sign. It's about to hit the kickstand of the bike. If I keep painting, it starts painting the kickstand. So that's not good. You would have to go resample in a slightly different place and then paint some more. And so that's what the clone does. It picks up something and copies it or clones it someplace else. Now, you're going to need this a lot because the other tools that we're going to use, they have weaknesses. The clone stamp tool is one that doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. The other ones are faster, sometimes they're better, but they all have weaknesses. And the cure will almost always be, go back to the clone stamp tool to fix that one little area. This will all become apparent in a minute, but this is a tool you're going to be using a bunch, because you're going to think, well, the healing brush is so easy and the patch tool is so easy. They are, but they don't always work. Sometimes they smear, sometimes they have problems. You're going to see how to fix all that, but you're going to wind up coming back to this clone stamp tool a lot. All right, so that's the first one. So another thing we're going to do is a thing called content aware fill. So content aware fill is where you basically fill an area of your image, but instead of just filling it with white or fill it with black, it actually analyzes the area around it and tries to make a smart fill by using the things around it. For example, let's take a look at what's wrong, what we have in this photo that we'd like to get rid of. Well, there's certainly a couple of things here. One is this building over here. The next thing is something sticking up over here. And then there's a couple of birds. Well, the birds you can get rid of with the clone stamp tool. You would just option click in a nearby piece of cloud and click once and the bird's gone. Make your brush just a little bigger than what you want to get rid of. Here, this bird's on the blue sky, option click and get rid of that. Easy enough. But in these cases over here, you're better off to do this. You can make a selection of this little thing here. I just shot off the page, right? Nice. Of this thing here. Make a selection, just put a lasso around it, and then you can go under the filter menu, under fill, and this is what you're going to choose, content aware. Click OK, and it's gone. Notice it didn't fill it with white, it didn't fill it with black, it filled it with the clouds that were around it. Now I'm going to show you some tricks a little bit later on to get better results from this, but that's just our starting point. I also want to give you a shortcut. If you are working on the background layer, if you're working on the flattened layer like we are here, you don't have to go under the edit menu to fill, and you don't have to use a shortcut called Shift F5, which is the default shortcut. All you have to do is hit the delete key on your keyboard on a Mac or the backspace on Windows, and it will automatically do content aware fill. So for example, I want to get rid of this building. I take the lasso tool, I draw around the building, all right, and then I hit backspace or delete, and it's going to bring up the fill box already set to content aware. Hit return and watch. It does an intelligent fill, fills it in with clouds, and you're done. That's one way you're going to use content aware fill. There's some others. Another one you're going to use is for something like this. So we have a window here. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's go and draw a selection around the window. All right, and then we'll hit the delete key on Mac or the backspace on Windows and click OK for content aware. And it's gone. Boom, just like that. And you can see it even picked up the color kind of down here and repeated it upward. That works pretty well. So now what if you want to do something like this? Let's take a look at this image. So in this image, we've got a big window I want to fill. We put a selection around it. I go and hit the delete or backspace and fill it. It didn't feel so great. It kind of put a big V there. It didn't fill it with this stuff. So it works well a lot of the time. It doesn't work all the time. And sometimes you're going to have to go to something else. I want to show you a technique that I've been using for a long time that is awesome for situations like this. Instead of me trying to fill it and use the content aware fill, and I really can't use the healing brush. Of course, we haven't introduced it yet, but I can't really use that for this particular thing, and you'll see why in a minute. Here's what we're going to do. This is a trick I've been using for years. Get the rectangular marquee tool. All right, get the rectangular marquee tool. All right, and I'm going to draw a rectangular selection. It's this tool right up here. I'm going to draw a rectangular selection right next to it, like this. Let's get something like this. There we go. I'm getting pretty close to it right there. All right, now, so I make a selection in a tall rectangle right here. Now, I'm going to do something to soften the edges of this to kind of hide the fact that we're going to use a selection. If I leave a hard edge selection, it'll be a dead giveaway. We pulled this trick. So we're going to soften the edges by going under the select menu, under modify, and choose feather. Feather does one thing. It softens the edges of a selection so it hides the effect better. So bring up feather. We're going to add 10 pixels. 10 pixels, and click OK. That's kind of my standard thing. Now, the area that we have selected, it doesn't look like it, but it has a soft edge selection. You're going to press Command J on Mac or Control J on Windows. It's going to take that rectangle and pop it up on its own separate layer. Watch. Command J on Mac, Control J on Windows, and look, you have just it, and look at the edges. They're kind of soft, right? So here's what we're going to do. If I just take it and pull it over here, it will cover the window, but look how obvious it is. Even though I softened the edges, it looks real obvious. Here's the trick. Go to Free Transform, Command T on Mac, Control T on Windows. Go to Free Transform. Once you brought up the Free Transform bounding box, you're going to right-click anywhere inside of there. So right-click and up pops this menu here. You're going to choose Flip Horizontal. So it takes that thing and flips it the other way. So hit Flip Horizontal. Now watch what happens. Now you can move it into place and the tones match. Like about right there. Look at that. By flipping it. And so if you want to do a big wall, you got to flip it, make a copy, flip it the other way, make it a copy, flip it the other way. You keep flipping it and everything tones together. It works really, really well. So we'll do it again. Duplicate the layer, go to free transform. I can't just drag it over or it'll be really obvious and stupid looking like you see right there. But if you go flip horizontal, now look at that. The tones fit perfectly. So what I would do at this point is, let's just go ahead and either merge these two together. To take the layer you're on and merge it with the one below, you just press Command E on Mac or Control E on Windows, and those two layers become one. Now, you can see a little tiny area where they meet. What I'll do with that is that's when I'll go in with the healing brush and get rid of that little area. So the healing brush is basically a spot removal tool, and the spot healing brush is just for that. So let's make the brush a little bigger. By the way, the shortcut I'm using to make the brush sizes bigger is I'm using the right bracket to make the brush bigger, and I'm using the left bracket to make it smaller. So let's go and make it a little bigger, and I just click a couple of times right in here, and it gets rid of those places where the things repeated or they meet. See those little spots? I just kind of get rid of those, and no one would be the wiser now. But look at the big thing we covered. And it all matches. In fact, I think I could nudge it over a couple of things to the left. There we go. And now it all matches. And you could do the same thing here at the bottom, or what you could do, let's flatten the image, is you could take this piece here, right? So I'm right above. See the bottom where I'm at? Let's just scroll down a hair. See that little piece to get rid of that? I make a selection above it. Don't forget to soften the edges, right? Feather. 10, put that up on its own separate layer like that. But now, because you're going this way, you have to flip vertically. You can't flip horizontally, you have to flip vertically on the copy, and watch, it drags right down and covers that spot on the money. All right, so that's a technique we're going to wind up using. That little cover, flip and cover, we're going to do it a number of times. When we come to situations where the content aware fill doesn't work, we're going to use this. Also, look, you can grab now you can grab that spot healing brush tool, and we're going to make the brush just bigger than what we want to remove, and we're going to get rid of this right here. Just get rid of that line and get rid of this line. Just click and drag. The spot healing brush does not require you to do anything but click and drag for it to work, all right? And what it does is it chooses the place to sample from. Like remember the clone stamp tool we had to say, I want to move this over here, so we option clicked? You don't do that with the spot healing brush. The spot healing brush works great for little things, when you need to remove a little thing. And it's just kind of a background element. That's the spot healing brush. The regular healing brush is when I use it mostly when I'm working on someone's face, because where you sample from is really important, because the skin on our face, for example, the skin on your forehead goes this way, right? So the skin on your cheeks goes another way, and on the bridge of your nose it goes down. So you want to make sure that you're telling it, sample from here to fix here, right? With the spot healing brush, if you're just getting a little spot or something, it's no big deal. But when you start working on people's face or things that have a repeatable pattern or a texture, that's when you want to use the regular healing brush. The regular healing brush works like the clone tool. Option click to take this, basically texture or tones, and then put them over here. So the healing brush is very smart. It's a very smart way to do it. You want to use that first. That's your first line of defense. If that doesn't work, then we're going to switch over to the clone stamp tool. So in this case, everything worked pretty well. I'm going to leave that crack there so it looks kind of, reasonable. But that's how we would do that one. I want to show you one more thing about the content aware. Another place where you use content aware is this image. I had to rotate this image, right? It was a little crooked when I took it, and then we're going to work on this image later, because there's some junk like coming in on the sides here, and there's little spots here from cars off in the distance and stuff that we don't want. We'll fix those in a minute. But for right now, I had to rotate the photo. Well, when I rotated it, see how it left white gaps in the corners? 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's how we're going to get rid of those using content aware. We are going to get the magic wand tool. We're going to select one of those corners. And if I zoom in, you can see it's selected. Hold the Shift key and let's select the other corners, that one, because Content Aware is great for stuff like this, when you have gaps. Now, if I were to use Content Aware Fill right now, you'll get okay results. If you want better results, here's the trick to getting better results from Content Aware Fill when you've made a tight selection. So we selected exactly all 4 white corners. We're going to take those selections and expand them out by 4 pixels. That's kind of the magic number. So we go Select, Modify, and we choose Expand. We're going to expand those selected areas out by 4 pixels. So let's do that. Expand, and there you can see, expand by 4 pixels. That's the magic number. Click OK. Now when you do Content Aware Fill, that little selection that was all solid white has now expanded out to say, oh, there's clouds and sky and grass here. I got it. That little 4 pixels lets it dig in, and it makes it get smarter. Watch. Edit, Fill, Content Aware, wait just a moment. And since you expanded, look at that. It fills in all 4 corners, does a beautiful job of it. Why didn't we need that earlier when we used Content Aware Fill? Because when we used Content Aware Fill before, we weren't filling something that was white. There was actually pixels around there, so it could make an intelligent fill. Remember, we had the clouds and we had that building in the corner. It could say, oh yeah, well this is in the clouds. When you fill with white, it doesn't have a clue. That's why you expand out 4 pixels so it knows kind of what's around there, and it works much better. All right, that was Content Aware Fill. So I just want to recap. The Spot tool, we're going to use the Spot Healing Brush a lot. You just pick it up and use it. You don't have to use any special keys. The regular healing brush, you do have to use the special key. You use that in special situations. You'll use that when you need to choose this place where it samples from instead of Photoshop. And you'll see as we go through the class when that'll be. Number 3, the clone stamp is when you want to cover over something. You want to pick up something and cover over it, right? You also learned the trick about picking up something literally like that yellow wall and covering that window. So you learned that trick. But there's one more tool we need to know, and it is the cousin of the Spot Healing Brush and the regular healing brush. It's called the Patch tool. It is a wonderful tool. It's for removing big stuff. So when you've got something big and you want to get rid of it, it works really great for that. For example, take a look at this image here. So here we are in at the edge of Tiananmen Square, the Forbidden City in the background, and of course you want a fire extinguisher by at all times. I don't know what in this concrete was going to burst into flames, but anyway, the guard here does have a fire extinguisher. It's kind of killing the shot. So we're going to go in and not get the Spot or healing brush, we're going to get the Patch tool. The Patch tool lets you draw a selection around something. You drag it to someplace else, and it removes what's there. But what's nice about it is, as you drag the selection, you get a preview. So in this case, when I drag this away, I want it to have that little stone. Look behind the fire extinguisher, right? There's this little stone on the edges. I don't want to just drag it up here. It's going to look terrible. Look, I don't want that, right? I want it to actually have, let's undo that. I want to drag it over here so I can actually keep the same stone, and I want to keep it to where it's lined up just right. So when I let go, it's a perfect patch. So that's what the power of the Patch tool is. You click inside it, drag it to someplace clean, let go of the mouse, and it snaps back. But you get that preview. So if I wanted to, for example, try to get rid of these cones in the background, there's yellow cones here. I could select this cone, drag it over here to where it's a clean area, but still, notice I'm still lined up on that post. So when I let go, it's a perfect patch. It works really, really nicely. Why don't I just use the healing brush? Here's what I found about the healing brush. If I were to go over the cone and I zoom in tight, the little bars that should be straight will be a little bent. It'll have like a little angle in it and stuff. I usually have to go back and clean that up using the clone stamp tool. And you'll see me have to do this in the class. Not with the Patch tool. With the Patch tool, you move it over, it lines that stuff up, you let go, and it's nice and perfectly in a line. The Patch tool is really great. Just think of it. I need to remove something bigger. Healing brush for small stuff. Patch tool for bigger stuff. Content aware for really big stuff. All right, those are the basic stuff we need to go through. We're going to take and we're going to do all kinds of multiples of it and all, and you're going to learn all of this in the class. But those are the basic tools we're going to be using for the most part. You're going to see me grab for one of those tools or use one of those techniques or a bunch of them together, but that gets us started. Now, I want to tell you what's coming up next, because this is important. So I went on Facebook, and I told the people that follow me on Facebook, which is luckily a lot of people, I'm getting ready to do this class on unwanted stuff. What is the stuff that you guys run into again and again? And I got hundreds of responses, and luckily, I saw the same thing happening again and again.